Hiya, Squirt. Today I want to tell you a story. So it's 2023, the hype for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is through the roof, and it's a very exciting time for a certain lifelong Nintendo fan. Let's call them Bi-Curious George. Bi-Curious George is fresh out of college and working a shitty teaching job after moving to the most expensive city on Earth. They're completely broke, sober, and kinda ugly, so nightlife in the big city primarily consists of coming home and consuming as much Tears of the Kingdom related content as possible. Almost every day, Nintendo influencers are publishing videos about the game's art book, file size, $70 price tag, as well as reports of almost half of the content in the game being completely absent for marketing and left as a surprise upon release. And Bi-Curious George just eats this shit up, okay? There's even this one Australian fellow who makes an unboxing video about the then unreleased Zelda-themed Switch OLED, and Bi-Curious George is like, oh, this dude is so cool. He's got bead bracelets and a room full of video games and a bunch of fucking hair all over his face. Meanwhile, Bi-Curious George has been sleeping in their friend's kitchen for 10 months and can only grow facial hair on their monkey ass. This all culminates in Bi-Curious George making a series of very poor financial decisions. Not only do they decide they want to buy the game itself, but also all the accessories surrounding the game, including the $360 Zelda Switch OLED, even though they already have a regular OLED model, all because they saw people online talking about these products for months on end. When May 12th eventually rolls around and Bi-Curious George finally gets their grubby monkey mitts on their $75 Zelda-themed Switch Pro controller to play Tears of the Kingdom, an astonishing wave of disappointment washes over them. They realize that not only has most of the game's surprise been completely spoiled by Nintendo influencers, but the speculation surrounding the game has exhausted the possibility of it actually living up to expectation. And this sends Bi-Curious George into a spiral. They stop playing video games altogether and wander the city streets at night. They tell their bosses to kiss their furry monkey ass and quit their teaching job on the spot. They get carbon monoxide poisoning from a gas leak in the kitchen they're sleeping in, but also never go see the doctor about it because they don't have health insurance. Now, you're probably wondering what the fuck this story is about. Well, the truth is, it's about me. This is me, okay? This all actually happened. I'm Bi-Curious. Now, of course, I would never blame this entirely on Nintendo influencers. I was 23 years old when this all happened, and the irresponsible financial choices I made were completely my own. Furthermore, I have since grown to really love and appreciate Tears of the Kingdom in its own way, and it was my decision to listen to these content creators in the first place. But that doesn't mean that their content is above criticism. Time and time again, we've seen how unregulated hype demolishes enjoyment upon release. In fact, I'd argue that when expectations are met or exceeded, it's typically because there are no set expectations to begin with. Breath of the Wild was the first Zelda game of its kind, and while it has plenty of issues, it's also widely upheld as one of the best games of all time because no one could truly expect just how revolutionary it would be. Tears of the Kingdom, on the other hand, was a direct follow-up and therefore had an exact metric by which it was being critiqued, leading to many being seriously let down by the end result. And there are definitely cases of Nintendo overcharging and under-delivering on their product. I'm not trying to let the $100 billion corporation off the hook for the growing resentment towards their brand and solely point fingers at the YouTubers, okay? But these influencers should still take accountability for their content, especially the more prominent ones. So let's talk about it. If you aren't already caught up to speed, a little over a month ago, Wood from Beat 'em Ups, commonly referred to as
the largest individual Nintendo content creator probably in the world,
announced on his podcast that he heard a rumor about an upcoming Nintendo Direct in July, in which we'd hear about titles such as Metroid Prime 4 and a new Animal Crossing. This news then disseminated to Reddit, gaming websites, and, of course, other Nintendo YouTube channels, all generating hundreds of thousands of views and piquing interest for Nintendo fans across the board, particularly within the Animal Crossing community who hadn't heard news surrounding a new entry in over 5 years. There was only one problem. it was a lie.
I made it up.
Wood later admitted to making it all up, claiming that he did so as a social experiment in an effort to try and stop gaming leaks for good, because
I hate gaming leaks. They ruin surprises, they spoil moments that we love.
Then on his apology tour, he contradicted this statement where he had this to say about gaming rumors.
But Wood, you speculate all the time. You always talks about the rumors and the leaks. Yeah, because it's fun. Yeah, because I like doing it.
It's a lot of fun.
This took place during an interview with another well-known Nintendo influencer by the name of Nintendo Prime, famous for making unedited, unscripted, and unnecessary videos that all have the same title.
It's deleted. We got a fort. And here we are, and sure enough, it's deleted.
With this quote-unquote experiment, Wood indirectly implicated channels like Nintendo Prime of perpetuating this vicious cycle of misinformation and ruined surprises.
We live in a culture of constant Nintendo Direct rumors, manufactured excitement, and clickbait YouTube titles.
Which I actually agree with. This was especially egregious during the pandemic when every other day there was apparently some new bombshell lead on the often rumored Switch Pro, which turns out didn't even exist. A few years later, these channels also played a pivotal role in leaking every last detail about the Switch 2 before it was even revealed. But Wood's approach to solving this issue was not only comically mishandled, but his apology for blatantly lying seemed less directed towards his audience and more intent on making amends with his fellow Nintendo content creators. And the funny thing is, I don't like the content from either of these creators. Not only did Wood never fully explain what this supposed plan was to put an end to Nintendo leaks for good, but he's also a massive creator that has no history of spreading false information or gaming rumors in general. So it's ridiculous for him to act like people believing his claims is a confirmation bias gotcha moment. It's also not scientifically sound or ethical, but if you want to hear more about that, I'd recommend checking out this video since I'm not a scientist. And despite poorly paraphrasing the Wikipedia article on confirmation bias and dressing up like a male stripper in a doctor outfit, Wood isn't one either. So why did he do this? Say what you will about real gaming journalists, but if you actually want to stay up to date with legitimate rumors and leaks, there are plenty of channels out there that are far more diligent in sorting through the bullshit, presenting you with the real news stories, and not wasting your time while doing so. On the other hand, these kind of Nintendo influencers have to make a full-length video every single day and convince their audience that that video features huge, unmissable gaming news, even if it's just a completely unsubstantiated rumor that they heard from Reddit.
We got to dive into something that we actually have some tangible evidence for. Seller on Chinese secondhand marketplace Goofish.
And in an age of widespread misinformation and AI-generated news stories, this kind of content does not bode well for those of us actually trying to make something of substance. I think in general, I would just have more respect for this kind of gaming journalism if it wasn't so cowardly. Nintendo Prime likes to speak on how discussing video game news and rumors acts as a kind of escapism from everything else that's going on in the world.
Compared to all the other things going on in the world that can just really drag you down. You know, the overall harm of speculating about video games and talking about rumors, it seems kind of not that big of a deal, and like it's a better use of our time.
First of all, it's not. If you're lucky enough to have an outlet that gives you a break from focusing on the atrocities of the world, then by all means, you should give yourself that gift when you can. God knows I do, but I also don't think anyone should use that as an excuse to completely withdraw from what's happening out there in the world right now. In the long run, it is not a better use of our time to prioritize learning about a rumored port of New Super Mario Bros. Wii over, say, spreading awareness about a Palestinian genocide that the US is actively supporting, no matter how much it bums you out to hear about it. But I get it. These Nintendo news channels don't make political content, right?
If you're like me, you don't always pay close attention to politics.
Some of my favorite creators on this platform don't bring up politics in their videos because it just doesn't pertain to their content. Like, I love Nate the Hoof Guy, right? I mean, I fantasize about the things this dude could do to my feet, but also it would be really weird if all of a sudden he started talking about anti-trans legislation in the middle of a video called Pus Sprays from a Heifer's Hoof. But the problem with channels like Nintendo Prime is that when you're discussing the news, even video game news, politics will inevitably be involved. And when they are, time and time again, we've seen him take a centrist, fence-sitting, cowardly approach. And this is probably because the gamers notoriously hate politics in their video games. Whether that's a game featuring a shallow, both sides are wrong, cycle of violence is bad, moral messaging wrapped in an apartheid state allegory from an Israeli point of view, or just any game that has, like, gay stuff in it. Like, what the fuck?
I don't even want to fucking play it anymore.
So let's look at how Nintendo Prime tackled the subject of the recent price hikes of Switch accessories, an inherently political story directly tied to the Trump tariffs.
I'm a very centrist person. I'm not super hard left. I'm not super hard right. I really sit in the middle. Everyone's just trying to figure out how to fix their countries and make their countries the best they can be. I do tend to take the words of the President of the United States serious. I know some people think he lies all the time, and that's fine. This is not a political debate.
Okay, so there are 3 explanations for whatever the fuck he just said. Either 1, he's too scared to alienate any potential Trump supporters in his audience. 2, he's a closet Trump supporter himself, and he's scared to alienate everyone who isn't. Or 3, he literally just does not give a fuck about anything and actually considers himself to be a centrist, which seems like the least likely option, but keep in mind, none of these are good. Personally, I'm of the belief that if you have a platform, you should help raise awareness for something as catastrophic and prevalent as, say, a genocide, even if it doesn't specifically pertain to the content you specialize in. But I also understand that people need to consume content that provides them with a sense of escapism from the horrors of the world. You know what's good for that? Playing video games, watching an hour-long analysis of your favorite game on YouTube, taking a goddamn walk. This is not good escapism. This is excessively drawn-out gaming news without artistic intent and without a backbone. Look, I know these channels aren't going anywhere because at the end of the day, they're making a living off this content. But I really do believe that the content they make is not only creating false expectations and leading to more disappointment for their followers, but also inspiring their audience to have unconditional brand loyalty to a $100 billion corporation that truly does not give a fuck about them. Personally, I would love to see a pivot away from content that is just pointless Nintendo consumerism, or journalism that relies on breeding artificial hype while shying away from political context, even when it directly pertains to the story at hand. Because as it currently stands, this is journalism no more than this is a social experiment. That is to say, it's not. It's catering to single-issue gamers who have grown used to tuning out the state of the world beyond what directly affects them and their favorite hobby. And whether they know it or not, I think it's feeding into a growing resentment against that hobby. It doesn't matter if they tell you to take these rumors and leaks with a grain of salt, because this kind of content creation relies on getting your hopes up enough for you to click on their videos every day. Because when all is said and done, you are clicking on a video of someone who gets paid to be excited for you.